I have a question for you guys. Do you ever catch yourself looking around and thinking to yourself, wait, this isn't exactly how I pictured my life would be by now. This isn't how I pictured my life and what I thought it was going to look like. I've been in that headspace a lot lately, just thinking about navigating career stuff, family stuff, parenting, all those different things. And honestly, it's brought up a lot about identity, if that makes sense. Almost like, who am I outside of the roles that I fill every day? Who am I outside of the content creator? Who am I outside of the parent to these two little adorable cherubs? Who am I outside of a wife? Who am I? And if you slow down long enough to actually sit with those feelings, it can get really heavy and feel really overwhelming. Now, I used to think that therapy was this big, intimidating thing, almost like you had to wait until you hit some sort of crossroads or crisis or rock bottom until you go. But sometimes it's just about having somebody actually listen to you, actually help you untangle all of those thoughts and what you're feeling. And that's why I love what BetterHelp is doing. They make starting therapy so much easier and way less overwhelming and intimidating. You just fill out a quick questionnaire, you get matched with a licensed therapist, and in just a couple of days, you're off to the races. You're talking with somebody. It is so amazing. And if it's not the right therapist, you can switch at any time. There's no awkwardness, no extra cost, nothing. They have over 7,000 reviews and a 4.3 star rating on Trustpilot too. So you know you're in good hands. Going to therapy is a sign of strength, not weakness. And my sponsor, BetterHelp, makes therapy simple with 10% off your very first month to help you get started. So go to betterhelp.com/10tolife and get 10% off your first month and get started today.
Hey everybody, welcome back to an all new episode of 10 to Life with me, Annie Elise. I hope you guys are having a good start to your day. Today's case, guys, today's case. It has to do with religion, lust, lies, betrayal, deceit. I mean, all the workings of something that's going to go wrong, right? Something that's going to go sideways. And it's a complex and dirty and just, one of those. So I hope you're mentally in the right place for this because it is definitely a roller coaster one. And I'm just going to say it, guys. I'm just going to say it. You know the tagline. If you know what I'm going to say it with me. Just get a divorce. Just get a divorce. Or maybe, I don't know. Maybe that doesn't really apply to this one. We'll see. I'm going to stop talking and let's jump right in. Randy Stone was 42 years old in 2010, and he was the guy that everyone around town knew. People looked up to him. He was a former Marine turned businessman who now owned an insurance company, and he lived in Independence, Missouri. Now, Independence is, a little fun fact here, the 5th largest city in Missouri. And as you can probably tell from its name, it is rich in American history. Former President Harry Truman was born there. There were also 2 Civil War battles fought in Independence. So I'm sure that you can imagine how Randy, he just got a ton of respect as a veteran. Now, he had grown up about 20 minutes west of Independence in Kansas City. His family was devout, very committed to Christianity, and they taught Randy how important it was to have a relationship with the church and with God. So after graduating from high school, Randy knew exactly what he wanted to do with his life. There were never any second thoughts or any different ideas about what he was going to do. He wanted to join the Marines. He wanted to serve his country. So that's what he did in 1986. He served during Desert Storm, and then afterward, he joined the Army Reserves in 1990. Once his service was over, he came back home to Kansas City, and after being away for so long, I've got to imagine it was a little bit weird, right? I mean, being back home, surrounded by familiar faces after he had gone through much, changed so much, witnessed so much. But one of the familiar faces that he saw and that stuck out to him belonged to a woman named Teresa. Teresa and Randy had actually grown up together. She was also from Kansas City, and they were also around the same age. She had also, too, like him, been very active in the church. However, they had never been seriously romantically involved with one another before. But now, here Randy was. He had been through so much during his service. He was also only 23 years old, but he had lived so much life. So now, he wanted to find love. He wanted to settle down, have a family, just live the perfect, calm life. So in March of 1990, Randy asked Teresa out on a date. And right away, they hit it off. Things just clicked into place. It felt right for both of them. They had their first date in March, and by October, just 7 months later, they were married, which, I don't know, I guess when you know, right? Now, their wedding day, it was October 13th, 1990, and they were married in the New Hope Baptist Church. They were surrounded by their closest friends, their family members, people who had seen both of them grow up together. And not many people can say that they've known their spouse all their life, right? I mean, that's pretty cool. And all of Randy and Teresa's friends could just tell they were made for each other. He worshipped the ground that she walked on. They seemed so committed to each other, so in love, and that was true, even though on paper you would think that maybe they shouldn't work. Because this was very much an opposites attract kind of situation. I mean, Randy kept to himself, mostly quiet. He was reserved, he was quiet, a little bit introverted almost. If he already knew someone and was close to them, sure, he would open up, but otherwise he wasn't very talkative or very high energy. Teresa, on the other hand, she was super outgoing. She was attractive. She had one of those personalities where, a lot of the time it kind of came across like she was flirting because she was just like talking and like she would touch your arm and this and that. And I'm not saying she was trying to flirt with other people. It just kind of sometimes read that way unintentionally. It just happened. It was an unintentional thing. It's not like she was trying to be a flirt. She was just, bubbly, talkative. So they got married, and Randy and Teresa wasted no time in having children. It was something that they had both always wanted, so why wait, right? So just 1 year after their wedding, they welcomed a son together who they named Michael. And then 3 years later, they had a daughter named Miranda. Now, in the meantime, Randy opened up an insurance business, and he really got his name out there in the community. While Randy was working on building his business from the ground up, Teresa also stayed home and took care of Michael and Miranda. She really leaned into the stay-at-home mom role. And they made sure to raise their kids with the same values that they had grown up with, which of course meant staying active in the church. In fact, they went to the same church that they got married in, and then both of their kids were baptized there. Teresa sang in the choir, she volunteered at events, Randy volunteered to be in charge of the finances, he kept track of what money came in, what money came out, he also taught Sunday school and drove the church buses whenever they needed a driver. I mean, they were all in on this lifestyle and on this church together. And overall, they were pretty active in independence as a whole. Everybody knew who they were, particularly the people from their church, of course. Now, as for Teresa, well, as I'm sure many of you know, being a stay-at-home mom is definitely not for the weak of heart. Heck, being a mom in general isn't for the weak of heart, okay? But Teresa was a very good mom. She was extremely involved, and she really tried her best to be everything and more for her kids. But still, times can get tough, which is why when New Hope Baptist hired a new minister in 1999, Teresa was very excited about this. I mean, she liked the old pastor well enough, yes, but this new one, he was a younger guy. He was 38 years old. He was a bit older than she and Randy were, but overall similar in age, especially when you compare it to the old pastor guy who was a little bit older. So this new guy, too, was just much more open-minded, a bit less stuck in his ways. So she felt like this was going to be good. She spent so much time at the church, and now there was somebody who's like-minded like her, similar in age. It just felt like, okay, I'm kind of now getting outside of the box of just being siloed with my kids all the time. Now, this new pastor believed that sometimes it's okay to change things up. Things didn't have to stay the exact same way that they've been for 60 years. And if you go to any kind of church regularly, you probably know how rare that attitude is, right? Lots of churches just do not change. It's almost like a rule. So this new minister's name was David Love, and one of the big things that he did different from the old minister was that David always kept his office open for counseling. Anyone who wanted to could just drop in anytime and could talk to him about what was going on in their life and seek his advice. And to be clear, this man, he wasn't a therapist or anything. It was more of spiritual counseling, but I mean, he was definitely keeping an open door policy for all of his congregation, I guess you would call it. So when he started, David and his wife Kim got a lot of attention. They came across as just very devout, very committed to the faith, which Of course, makes sense. I mean, that's what you want from a pastor and his wife, right? Kim, his wife, had a very strong Southern accent. And as for David, he was kind of just like a wife guy. I mean, I say that because you could just tell looking at him that he was head over heels for his wife. He loved talking about their love story, how they got together. He would tell the story over and over to anybody who would listen, how they met in college, how it was love at first sight, how when he asked her to marry him, she was so excited that she literally just yelled, "Yes, yes, yes." I mean, he would tell this story often. And each time David told the story, people would just laugh and they would smile. They thought it was cute. You know, it's kind of what you want to hear. And like I said, Teresa thought David was great. She loved the changes he was making at the church. She loved the way he talked, the way he acted, the way he was just relatable. And she was a big fan of that open door policy too, and the spiritual counseling policy. She made use of it. She would go and visit him and she would talk with him about all of the things that were going on in her life. Again, he wasn't a real licensed therapist, but not everybody can afford mental health treatment. Some people feel weird about it too, like it's taboo, even in the early 2000s. Sometimes people have their own opinions. And given how religious Teresa was, I'm sure she liked the idea of getting advice from somebody who shared the same beliefs as her, who could help her get closer to God. So she started going in to talk with David once every few weeks. And then that turned into once a week. But then that turned into 2 to 3 times a week. Now, obviously, these were private, confidential sessions, so I don't know exactly what they talked about, but I'm guessing that she agreed with a lot of David's takes and his thoughts and his advice, and that it was helpful. Plus, as a stay-at-home mom, she was probably a little bit lonely, so she might have appreciated just having somebody to talk to who wasn't a member of her own family. And don't get me wrong, it's not like Randy had been neglecting Teresa or anything like that, but he was busy. And also, nobody can be everything to somebody else. No matter how in love you are, no matter how good your marriage is, at a certain point, you need to be around friends or other people. So Teresa started seeing David a lot. But still, to all appearances, she and Randy were good. They were rock solid. So in 2004, 14 years after their wedding, Teresa came to Randy to tell him some very big news that was going to change everything between them. She was pregnant. And this news was good, but it was extremely unexpected. It had been so long since their last baby that nobody expected that they would be having any more. But here she was saying, "Our whole life's about to change. I'm pregnant. Can you believe it?" But what was weird about it was that Randy had even gotten a vasectomy, thinking that Michael and Miranda was it for him. But he never had gone to any of the follow-up appointments. So when Teresa told him she was pregnant, he kind of stopped for a moment, thought about it, and he figured, maybe this vasectomy didn't work. Maybe the doctor screwed up some part of it and nobody caught on to it. I mean, it can happen, and TMI, but I know this because my husband got one. After you get a vasectomy, you have to go back in and kind of like, shoot your blanks, get it tested to see if anything gets through. And so if he didn't go to these follow-up appointments, it's clear that, anything could have happened. It could have not been as effective. So like I said, this was unexpected, but they were both excited. They both loved being parents already, and they were ready to pull, all the onesies out of storage, the high chair back out, and do it all over again, which, God bless you. God bless you. Except not too long after Teresa made her big announcement, she unfortunately had a miscarriage. And understandably, this really broke her. She was absolutely devastated. And with that, she became very distant, specifically from Randy. It almost came across like Teresa resented him for not understanding what she was going through. He hadn't carried that child inside of him. He didn't know or understand how painful that grief was for her. And I think that this is something that lots of people feel after a loss like that. Now, her saving grace during this grieving period was having those counseling sessions at church. But they couldn't fix everything, and Randy didn't know what to do. He loved his family, he loved his wife, and he could see that she was pulling away from him with every passing day, and he didn't want to lose her. So the question in his mind was, what do I even do now? Up to this point, he had never seen himself as somebody who needed counseling or mental health support. And you know how it is. I mean, he was a man, he was a Marine, he was someone who wanted to be strong and independent. He had a hard time accepting that you can be strong and also need help sometimes. But the more distant that Teresa got, the more he got to understanding that something needed to change. He needed to change. So unsure of what else to do, Randy went to David for counseling. And Randy considered David a really good friend. They had known each other for years at this point. Not to mention, if anyone could guide him spiritually in this tough time, It would definitely be his pastor, right? So Randy began going and seeing David every single morning before work. He would talk about his issues with Teresa, the tough times that they were going through in their marriage. And to Randy's shock, David's sessions were really helpful. He could help him see other perspectives and help Randy look at some of these problems in a new way, in a new light. So slowly, Randy and Teresa's marriage went back to what it had been before. They fell back in love, head over heels again. It was basically a miracle. Now, of course, they had both done a lot of work on their own, but the common denominator was David and his open door policy, his welcome to all counseling sessions. He had practically saved their family. And for a while, things were good. They were okay and they were happy again. That is until March 31st, 2010, when tragedy struck their family. It had begun as a normal day. The cool winter weather was slowly starting to turn into spring. The kids, Michael and Miranda, were adults now. They didn't need Teresa to take care of them or watch them so closely anymore. So Teresa had actually quit being a stay-at-home mom, and now she had a job working for Randy. Just little secretary things here and there, some customer service, nothing too out there, nothing too wild. But that day in particular, it was a bit slower. So Teresa decided to go run some errands during her downtime. She wanted to just step out for a few minutes and then she would head right back into the office. When she was done with all of her errands, she pulled back into the parking lot and something just felt off. She had almost an overwhelming sense of dread. She knew that something was wrong, but at first, she couldn't quite pin down what it was. But then she finally noticed that the blinds on the windows of Randy's office were all down. That was really weird. See, Randy always had the blinds open. It was part of his routine at night to go around. He would close them when he's shutting everything down for the night. But it wasn't the end of the day yet, so there was no reason for him to be shutting everything down at this point. Now, when she went inside, nothing looked out of the ordinary other than the fact that it was a bit darker than typical and, it was also much, much quieter. Teresa couldn't hear Randy typing on the computer. There were no phones ringing, no customers there, no chatting, nobody making copies or printing. The office was dead silent, which you might be thinking, uh-oh, blinds are drawn. It's dead silent. Is he having an affair? Is he got a different secretary on the desk? So Teresa started calling out Randy's name, but nobody replied. And it had only been the two of them at the office that day, so the thought of him being with somebody else wasn't really crossing her mind. It didn't really seem possible. And once Teresa headed out to run some errands, it really was just Randy at the office all alone. So she went to go check inside his office, but it was empty. She also checked the storage closet, but also empty. So eventually, she kind of just gave up with her search and decided to go down the hall to where her office was. Her thinking was, okay, maybe Randy had left early for the day. Maybe he left her a note in her office saying, hey, I shut the whole office down, I'll see you at home, something like that. But when she got inside her office, she found Randy lying on the ground next to her desk. He wasn't moving. And worst of all, there was a puddle of blood underneath him. And then when she looked up, there was blood spatter all over the walls. Now that was a lot to take in, but there was one more detail that really stood out to Teresa. It was all that she could focus on because she noticed that his lips were blue and his eyes were open. His eyes weren't moving and they almost looked black. Now, you've just found your husband brutally attacked and in pretty bad condition, if not dead. What do? Probably call 911. But that's not what Teresa did. Using the wireless phone she had on her desk in her office, she called her parents. She told them Randy had been shot, and then she asked them to come to the office as soon as they could, and once they said okay, and once they got off the phone, that is when Teresa finally dialed 911. Now here's where a lot of people can get very critical of Teresa, not just because she called 911 second and called her parents first, but because when she was on the phone with the operator, she didn't mention that Randy had been shot like she mentioned with her parents. When the operator asked what was wrong with him, she said, quote, I don't know. There's blood everywhere. It's coming out of his ear. Now, yes, people react to trauma in very unexpected ways. So maybe it was just hard for her to think straight to get the answer out. I don't know. But she was correct when she told her parents. Randy had been shot. And unfortunately, he was dead at only 42 years old. Now, the crime scene was very chaotic. As first responders were arriving, so did what seemed like the entire community. Word traveled insanely fast. I don't know if Teresa's parents had started calling everyone after they got off the phone or what happened, but that's definitely what it seemed like. Within no time at all, the insurance office parking lot was filled to the brim with Randy and Teresa's family and friends. There were also cop cars, fire trucks, ambulances, tons of people from the church. I mean, the whole congregation obviously wasn't there, but I mean, a lot of people were. Even the pastor and his wife had arrived at some point. Teresa's parents also showed up, and they brought Randy and Teresa's youngest child, Miranda, which that's how she ended up learning about her father's passing. She was there on site. And I'm not trying to shame Teresa's parents at all for any of that, but I cannot imagine the trauma for Miranda of being there, seeing the ambulances, the cop cars, seeing everything with your own eyes, having to learn the news that way. I mean, at least her older brother Michael was away at college, so he was spared all of that. Not that learning the news over the phone is a whole heck of a lot better, but you get what I'm saying. So anyways, there was this massive crowd outside, and the police ended up closing the crime scene so that they could stop the people from getting in. And when they did that, that's when they got to investigating. It was very obvious right away that Randy did not do this to himself. There was no note, but more importantly, there was also no gun. And he had been fatally shot in the head, and there was a .40 caliber casing next to his body. So if the shot had been self-inflicted, the gun should have been close to his hand, if not in his hand, right? It's not like he would have had the chance to go hide it or stash it somewhere else. Certainly not. Nothing was stolen or out of place though. The drawers and the filing cabinets were all still closed. There was no sign that anybody had rifled through them. Randy's wallet was still in his back pocket. He also had $151 in cash just sitting there on the desk. So clearly, whoever did this, it wasn't part of a robbery. It seemed more like someone specifically went into that office to kill Randy. But he didn't have any enemies. I mean, heck, pretty much everyone who knew him liked him. And murder never makes any sense. But for it to happen to a guy like Randy, it really didn't make sense, and police had their work cut out for them. Randy's funeral was on April 6th, 2010, and he had it at his beloved church. The church where he and Teresa had said I do so many years before, where the kids had been baptized, where they grew up, and this church was packed. People were crying, people were very upset, and people were especially upset when David, the pastor, stood up and gave a very moving, very emotional speech. He said, "We weep not just because of the separation of our loved one, but because of the questions that death brings. Questions like why? Why him? Why now?" But you know what's interesting? Some of the people who were there at the funeral weren't just there to pay their respects. The service was also full of detectives, and they were all there because they believed that Randy's murderer was somewhere inside that church. And you might be thinking, whoa, that's a big assumption to make. What is that based on? Well, it all had to do with the angle of Randy's gunshot wound and the lack of any signs of forced entry. He had been shot in the back of the head. So as far as the police were concerned, this told a very clear story. The killer didn't break in or force their way in. They had walked in very casually without ever tipping Randy off that he was in danger. Maybe he even knew them. In fact, they felt like Randy knew his murderer and that he had allowed them inside of the office. That then he probably turned his back on them, no problem. So yeah, the police thought that the killer was somebody close to him, which meant so far as the investigation was concerned, they were taking a really close look at the people who were a part of Randy's life. And one of the first people that the police wanted to talk to was Teresa, and I do mean the very first. They actually questioned her for the first time at the station while some different investigators were still at the crime scene with Randy's body. And she had gotten very lucky that day because remember, she was out of the office running errands when her husband was murdered at work. If she hadn't decided to leave in the middle of the day, she could have been there when the killer showed up. She could have been shot too. That is assuming that it really was a coincidence that she left right at the right time. And the police weren't very sure that that was true. So Teresa came in and she started out by saying that Randy really didn't have any enemies. And that's something that the police already knew. She said that their business had changed in some ways, that recently it had created, yes, some financial problems, but there weren't anything serious, certainly not worth murdering anybody over. She also showed the police some receipts for the things that she bought while she was out running errands. basically proving, she did leave the office, she did go shopping. She even explained which stores she had been to, which ones might have surveillance footage, telling the detectives, look, there's even more ways for you to confirm where I was and what I was doing. I have nothing to hide. And I mean, she had an amazing alibi. The only thing that was weird was that she almost seemed a little too prepared to prove her whereabouts. She walked the detectives through every stop that she made, how long she spent at each store, how long she spent driving, all the way down to the minute. Literally. I mean, get this. At one point, she told the detectives that she went to Dress Barn to go shopping and that she left there by 2:41 p.m. That's really specific, isn't it? I mean, why did she say 2:41? Why not say a little after 2:30 or around 2:45? 2:41? 2:41? That's suspicious. That's weird. I mean, what? Now, on top of that, Teresa's attitude also seemed off. When she had been at the insurance office after she had found Randy's body, she had been sobbing. She was going up to friends and family members, literally just crying on their shoulders, pressing her face against them, just burying her face in their shoulders. But now, during the interrogation, she seemed fine. There were no real tears, no questions of why this had happened or who could do such a thing, nothing. It had only been an hour, too, since she had called 911, so it was all still pretty fresh. But I'm curious to know what you guys think.
Roughly about 3:30, went to Sonic and then got to JCPenney's.
Yes, we left JCPenney's. Well, I didn't call him. We left JCPenney's at 4:20.
Okay.
So I was supposed to be at the office at 4:30. Or at least I told him I'd be back by 4:30.
Yeah.
And I didn't make it.
Okay, so when you left JCPenney's about 4:20, did you make a couple purchases there or anything?
Yeah, we bought some sunglasses.
Okay.
Me and Miranda both a pair of sunglasses, and I bought her a couple of shirts.
Whose idea was to go to JCPenney's?
Well, my daughter said she needed sunglasses for our trip.
Oh, yeah.
So I said, okay, I got a $10 coupon. We'll go to JCPenney's and get you some glasses. So we made this plan 2 days ago that we would go because this was the only time that we could go.
Right.
So we did.
Now, I will say, shock is a very real thing. People can seem calm and collected when the reality is that they're just too upset and too stunned to be able to process things. In fact, the police weren't that surprised to see Teresa so cool and normal because they assumed that she was in shock. That is right up until she brought it up herself, basically calling attention to how together she was. For lack of better words, she was almost just doing too much. She even apologized for not being more emotional, and she told them that she was, quote, all cried out. All cried out in an hour? All cried out in an hour after your husband was just murdered? What? But then she started acting like she was crying, almost like she had just reminded herself that this was how it was supposed to be, how she was supposed to be acting. Except she wasn't actually crying. There were no tears. She kept wiping her eyes, but I mean, she actually wasn't wiping away anything. There was no water, no tears. And all of that fake crying weirdness aside, her body language was just very casual and informal. If you just watch the interrogation footage with the sound off, you might even guess that she was just talking about the latest gossip that was going around the church. She just didn't look like someone who had just found out that her husband of almost 20 years was murdered in cold blood an hour ago. So then the police asked Teresa who might have done this to Randy. And she had plenty of answers, but very random ones, like a homeless man, a client who had flirted with her, things like that. Except when the police asked follow-up questions like, well, why would that person commit the murder? What made them stand out in your mind? Teresa couldn't explain why she was giving these answers. It was almost like she was saying whatever popped into her head without actually even taking the question seriously. They also had a whole conversation about life insurance, and the detectives asked if Randy did have life insurance, which, surprise, surprise, he did. And Teresa gave a long-winded answer as to why. Now, I've heard some people suggest that she was being defensive. Like, people, yes, get life insurance. You don't need to get all tied up in knots justifying it. Unless you're feeling guilty, right? Which, I don't know. I'm curious to know what you guys think. So while all of this was going on, the investigators at the crime scene found something that was a bit weird. Inside Teresa's office, in a trash can, just a few feet away from Randy's body, there was a piece of paper that was ripped up into 9 pieces. It looked like it had actually been a letter. And when the police pieced it together, they saw that this letter had been addressed to Teresa. And this letter was extremely intimate, and it was, without a doubt, a love letter. The note said things like, "You possess the most tender spot in my heart. Happy birthday, love. I'm not in control of things yet, but when we are fully together, your birthday will always be exciting, full of surprises, romantic, and all about loving you. You are the center of my world. I praise you. I adore you. I'm blessed by you. I need you. I love you." And I know what you might be thinking. Wow, obviously Teresa's husband had written her this incredibly sweet note for her birthday, and then he was just murdered. How sad. Except there were a few things about the message that seemed off in a way that had the detectives wondering if maybe there was something else going on here. See, first, the letter wasn't signed, which, not a huge deal on its own. Maybe Randy figured that of course Teresa would know that it was from him. But then there was the fact that it had been ripped up. Why would you tear up such a sweet note? Why would you destroy this really thoughtful, loving gesture? In the police officer's mind, the only reason that you would do that would be if you wanted to make sure that nobody else found the note. So just to be sure, they found some other papers with Randy's handwriting on them. They compared those papers to the note, and the two weren't even close. Randy was not the one who wrote this letter. So those police officers talked to the ones who were questioning Teresa, and they asked her about it, but she acted clueless. She even acted clueless even when they pretty much said, "Hey, you know that letter that was ripped up at the bottom of your trash can? Yeah, who wrote that?" But she simply said that she didn't remember it. I don't know how you would forget a letter like that, but okay. And get this. The detectives went out of the room, leaving her alone. They wanted to see if somebody could maybe send them a copy of the letter or a picture of it so that they could read it for themselves and then ask more questions about it. And while Teresa was alone in that room, she was still being recorded. So there was no one around, yet she started talking. And out loud, whispering, but still pretty audible, she was saying to herself, "Oh great, I forgot about that." Almost like she was kicking herself, kind of being like, "Oh great, I forgot about that." Like, while she was being recorded, which she probably didn't think about that. But it was almost like she did in fact know exactly what that letter was. And while she was waiting for the police to come back, she must have been trying to come up with a whole plan to try and explain it away. Because as soon as the interrogators were back inside that room, she said, "Oh, right, I do remember about that letter now. It was from an anonymous secret admirer, but I don't know who they are." What? Pretty personal for a secret admirer that you don't know who they are. According to Teresa, though, someone left that note on her car door many, many years ago. And for whatever reason, that day was the day that she decided to throw it away. And she said it was so Randy wouldn't see it and get upset, which why hold on to a letter for years? And you're all entitled to your own opinions, but in my mind, it is just complete bullshit, right? I mean, she really went into detail. She said that when she first found the letter all those years ago, she shoved it in the bottom of her purse, trying to forget about it. And the reason that it was in the trash can at the office now was because she was cleaning out her purse recently. She saw this old letter, and she decided to throw it away right then and there.
You okay? Need anything? We're about done here. On that letter, they didn't take a picture of it, but they collected it. So we can't see it because it's on property. But it's a note about that big.
Yeah, I remember. And I've had it for a very long time because I kind of had a secret admirer. It was left on my car door. I
Today?
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Where was your car at the office?
It's not even the car that I have now.
Oh, okay.
I believe it was. That's been several years ago. And I just found it the other day. I was looking for my what do you call it? Dental card.
Yeah.
And I found it in there. And
Where was that? In your drawer? Or?
no. It was in my purse. I have a little thingy that I keep all my credit cards in.
Yeah.
And it was in there.
Who's the secret admirer?
I don't know who he is.
Wow.
I've never gotten another note from him ever.
No calls?
No calls.
But if she was so worried about Randy finding it, number one, why not throw it away the day she got it? Years ago, why hold on to it for years? And number two, does this woman never clean out her purse? A love letter from years ago? Plural? Years ago, plural, just chilling in the bottom of her purse? It doesn't add up. It doesn't smell right. Something is afoot here. And the investigators pretty much thought the same thing. Nothing that she said was making any sense. But even though Teresa was acting pretty suspicious, there was no evidence proving that she had anything to do with Randy's death. Like I said, she had a solid alibi. So after they finished their interview, they let her go. But she was far from being off their radar. I mentioned that Randy's funeral was on April 6th. But during the time between the interrogation and the funeral, Teresa kept being weird. She kept doing odd things. The day after Randy's murder, she had some family and friends come over to remember him, spend quality time together, help her not be alone. And the entire time, Teresa was crying, full of emotion. At one point, she even asked one of Randy's coworkers to come downstairs with her for a minute. And he was like, yeah, of course, anything that this grieving widow wants, sure, what can I do? But once they got downstairs, it was like the waterworks just stopped. Suddenly, Teresa was totally calm and just totally okay. And then she showed him a table where she laid out all of Randy's life insurance paperwork. This coworker, the manager, was obviously very surprised. I mean, it hadn't even been a full 24 hours since the murder. The death certificate wasn't even ready, and she was wanting to know as much as possible about his policy? How does that make sense? Then, in the initial days after Randy's death, it was like she wasn't distraught or grieving. She was out shopping. She was going to the tanning salon. She even apparently asked the workers at the salon to transfer Randy's tanning credits over to her account. I mean, I guess you could argue that Randy would have wanted her to move on, but that quick, it feels a little callous, to me at least. Then, there was a strange phone call between Teresa and the old pastor of the church and their longtime friend, a man named David Trump. Not to be confused with the current pastor, David Love. Now, since that's two Davids, we'll just call him Pastor Trump, which, as funny as that sounds, that's what we'll call him, and then we'll have, Pastor David. Now, you see, Pastor Trump hadn't heard the news yet. He didn't know that Randy was dead, let alone murdered. So when Teresa just casually and very matter-of-factly brought it up, he pretty much stopped in his tracks. He had known Randy for years. He considered him a friend, so he was understandably heartbroken. The whole phone call felt like it was getting whiplash for him. Teresa had gone from, yeah, Randy's dead, to, well, how's your wife and how's your daughter doing? Pastor Trump couldn't even really answer or focus on the question. It was all just surreal and odd. Then, before the end of the call, Teresa even was telling him all about what she did that day. Like repeating her alibi, which I don't think I even need to mention. It's just so weird and tone deaf. For one, he never even asked. That was the last thing on his mind. And secondly, why would she have felt the need to share how she went shopping before finding her husband brutally murdered? It was all just weird and unsettling. Now, of course, it's not like the police knew about all of this right away. They weren't tailing her, they weren't bugging her phone, so they didn't know about the tanning salon or the conversation that she had with Pastor Trump. But they did get a search warrant so that they could look at Randy's computer and his cell phone. And on there, they had found an email that had been sent from Randy to new Pastor David on March 17th. And this email was not a good one at all. See, Randy was very good with money, and he had volunteered, if you remember, to keep track of the church's finances for years. But in this email, Randy said that he noticed that something was off. The books weren't adding up. Funds were missing. In fact, it looked to Randy that somebody had been writing checks directly to David, which had not been approved by the church officials. And all of these checks were in David's handwriting. So according to this email, he thought that David was being shady, up to no good, almost like he was kind of helping himself to the church's money. Randy, of course, disapproved of this. He thought this was wrong. He didn't want to be part of this church anymore because of this. He was quitting his volunteer position over it. He wanted nothing to do with it. He also said he and his family were going to find somewhere else new to worship. Like, we want no part in this. We are out. And then, what a coincidence. Just 2 weeks later, he ended up murdered. So the police were thinking, okay, well, maybe Pastor David had a motive here. Maybe he had been stealing from the church and Randy caught him. So he might have killed Randy so that he wouldn't be exposed as a thief. The tricky thing was, the investigators now had two separate people who both looked guilty as hell. One had been acting suspicious, and both of them had a motive. David wouldn't want Randy to go to the police or to the church higher-ups. He could have lost his job, or even worse, been arrested if Randy could have proved that he was stealing. Meanwhile, you had Teresa, who made close to $800,000 from the life insurance policy. And of course, there was another possibility in all of this, that maybe with both of them having a motive, maybe they were in on it together. And maybe it went further than that even. I mean, let's not forget the possibility of an affair, depending on what you think was going on with that torn up letter. Could that have been from David? And sure enough, when the officer started talking to people who knew both David and Teresa, especially people who had gone to their church, more than one person said that they believed that David and Teresa were having an affair. In fact, it had been the talk of the church behind closed doors for quite some time, years even. Now, apparently these rumors had been going around for so long that they had become kind of just like a joke. Some people thought that they were just rumors, that there was nothing to them, but there were several people who truly, genuinely believed that Teresa and David had been sleeping together for a while. And to be clear, it seems like nobody ever specifically saw or heard anything. Sometimes it was just glances between the two of them, or interactions that had people kind of looking sideways and raising their eyebrows at them. And when they were asked to go into a bit more detail, all of the people who brought all of this up agreed the rumors really began circulating when Teresa had announced her third pregnancy. That unexpected pregnancy we talked about. I guess it was common knowledge that Randy had had a vasectomy, and where he thought that maybe it was just simply a miracle from God, others were not as convinced. They also noticed just how much time Teresa and David were spending together. Remember, she was going in for counseling sessions multiple times a week, if not daily at that point. But after her miscarriage, the gossip kind of started to die down, because accusing someone of having an affair while they're mourning the loss of a pregnancy is like a real shitty thing to do. I mean, even if the affair is actually going on, nobody wants to be the person who's actually spreading those kinds of rumors in that kind of situation. So really, all the police had was gossip, which couldn't be verified. They needed more, which is why they brought in David's wife, Kim. They specifically brought her in to see if she knew anything about this alleged affair, and it turned out that she was going to be a huge help. Now, I don't know for sure. This is purely speculation based on my own opinions alone, but it almost seemed like Kim had just been waiting for somebody to ask her about the affair. It was like she couldn't share the information fast enough. Because yes, she actually knew about it. At first, it had just been suspicions. She noticed how Teresa was acting very flirty, and like I mentioned way back at the start of this episode, that was kind of just her personality, so it didn't automatically mean anything. But then something about the way Teresa talked to David rubbed Kim the wrong way. But Kim didn't want to come across as jealous or paranoid or possessive, so she tried to explain it away to herself. You know, kind of saying, that's just Teresa being Teresa, I'm imagining things. But eventually, Kim straight up went to David and said that she was uncomfortable. She was feeling threatened. And as you can probably imagine, he gaslit her completely. He told her, no, there's nothing to worry about, it's all in your head. But then, just a few months before Randy's death, something really weird happened. David bought Kim a ring. It was pretty, but it wasn't really her style at all, so she decided that she would personally go back to the store and exchange it for something that she would actually want to wear, a piece of jewelry she would wear. Well, when she got to the store, she didn't have the receipt, which kind of makes sense. I mean, it was a gift. So Kim told the clerk David's name, and the clerk was able to look up the purchase and print the receipt for her. It said that David had bought this silver ring for $300, and it had 3 diamonds in it, 2 little ones and 1 big one in the middle. Pretty nice ring, pretty beautiful, the kind of ring that would be maybe, I don't know, saved for a special occasion. But what was funny about that is that's not at all what her ring looked like. And Kim wasn't some kind of jewelry expert, so it's not like she could tell exactly how much the ring should cost just by looking at it, but she personally thought that her ring looked cheap, not like it was worth $300. And it wasn't just that it looked cheaper to Kim. Her ring didn't have the multiple diamonds as described. It only had 1, which is fine, but again, it definitely was different than what this receipt was showing was purchased. So in Kim's mind, this could only mean one thing. David bought a different ring, and the receipt that the clerk had printed was in his name, so that meant that David bought that $300 ring with the diamonds on it, but it wasn't the ring that he gave to her. So her first thought, while trying to explain it away and reconcile it all, was, okay, maybe he bought the more expensive ring to give her for her birthday, and she spoiled the surprise for herself. But at one point, her curiosity got the better of her. So she used that information from the receipt to Google that particular style of ring. She wanted to see what it looked like. She wanted to investigate. And when she saw it, to her shock, she realized she had seen that ring before. Anyone want to take a guess where? It had been on Teresa's hand, just below her wedding ring. Kim knew without a doubt that it was the same one because she had noticed how big it was and how pretty it was. So she confronted David about it. And wildly enough, he did admit that he had given Teresa the ring. However, he said, it was just a dumb, innocent mistake. He saw Teresa as a friend. He wanted to give her a gift, which, a gift of a diamond ring? A gift of a diamond ring that she wore under her wedding ring? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? I mean, gaslighting is one thing, but being a complete fucking bozo idiot, sorry, excuse my cussing, is another thing. And I gotta say, do you think Kim believed that for even a split second? I mean, no. She was having her doubts now. But David was sticking to his cover story. He even went to Teresa and asked her to give him the ring back. And apparently he gave that ring right back to Kim saying, hey, I'm showing you that we are just friends. I even asked for the ring back. It means nothing. Which, what? It doesn't mean nothing. It just means maybe she's in on it and she wants to hide it too. Like, it makes no sense. So then Kim told the police that not long before Randy's murder, as in just a few weeks before, earlier in March, she finally caught David in the act of cheating and having an affair. According to Kim, one day he was being really weird. He was avoiding her, not giving her straight answers about where he had been. He kept trying to be alone and make excuses to go outside to the garage, so one time she straight up asked him, "Where are you sneaking off to? What are you up to?" He said that his feet were cold and that he needed to go get slippers. Well, as it turned out, he had an entire other secret phone in the garage, and he was using that phone to text and call someone. So that's why he was trying so hard to go out and be alone. He was on his secret phone. During her interview, Kim said that she knew that it was Teresa because she saw the text messages. So I don't know exactly if she followed him out to the garage and then caught him while he was texting her, or if she found the phone and looked through it. All I know is that she caught him and she knew what she saw and that it was confirmation of the affair. Luckily, though, Kim had made sure to note the number of the cell phone that David was using, as well as the number that he had been texting. So again, it seemed like she had just been waiting for somebody to ask about this affair. She was more than prepped and ready. In fact, Kim wrote down the phone number for David's burner phone as well as the number that he had been texting. And when they asked her if she remembered the numbers, she literally whipped out a piece of paper from her purse with the numbers on it. So again, like I said, it just came across as she was really waiting for somebody to ask her about this affair. She was ready for it. So now the police knew that David and Teresa didn't only have financial motives to want Randy dead, they also wanted to cover up their affair. But there was no evidence specifically pinning them to this murder. So the next big move was to see if either David or Teresa owned a .40 caliber gun, something that might match the shell casing that the police had found by Randy's body. Except neither David or Teresa owned a registered .40 caliber. Interestingly enough, though, Randy did. Randy was pretty big into guns and he had a large collection. He even kept one at the office, presumably for safety. But it wasn't a .40 caliber, so the police pretty quickly determined that that wasn't the murder weapon. Either way, though, since Randy did own a .40 caliber, the thinking was that Teresa would of course have access to it. So they got a warrant and they searched Randy and Teresa's home. But before they started poking around, they also asked Teresa specifically where Randy would have kept that gun, what the codes to the safes were, all the things. Teresa swore up and down that she didn't know anything about Randy's guns. She knew he had some, but she didn't like guns. She didn't want to hear about them, so she never asked where they were stored. But luckily, Randy's son Michael was still home from college, because this wasn't that long after the funeral. And he overheard the conversation and pretty much said something like, "Come on, Mom, you know where he keeps them. What are you talking about?" Which, I mean, can you even imagine Teresa's reaction to that when her son kind of like ratted her out like that? I mean, love to hear it. But even after Michael spoke up, she didn't tell the police anything. And finally, Michael was the one who got up and showed the guns to the detectives for himself, saying, "Okay, look, here they are. I even know where they are." Or at least I should say he tried to. Because one gun was missing from the collection. And wouldn't you know it, it was the .40 caliber. The holster was still there, sitting all by itself in the safe, which, how convenient, right? Now by now, it was April 20th, 2010, around 3 weeks after Randy's murder. And the investigators asked Teresa to come in for a second interview. At the start of this interrogation, they came out swinging. I mean, they came in hot. There was no point in wasting any more of their time. So they started with that letter. They sat Teresa down with pictures of it and told her that they knew that the writer was somebody who was heavily involved in the church, a devout Christian. Now, obviously, they already knew that the writer was David, but they were hoping to get Teresa to admit to that herself. So all they said was that they knew that the writer was religious because of the certain language in it, like, I praise you, I adore you, I'm blessed by you, because it sounded pretty biblical. So they said, we know this writer is from the church. Who is it? And they knew that there was only one way that they were going to get her to confess, or at least confess to the affair and then pin the murder on David. And that was if they scared the living crap out of her. And to be fair, it kind of worked in the long run.
It's up to you to tell us exactly what happened, exactly what was going on, all right? Now, I've got about 20 detectives out here, and I'm going to be honest with you. I got about 20 detectives out here that want to take this to a grand jury today, tomorrow. They think there's enough evidence against you to have you charged because they think you're involved in this. And it's either not that you killed him, but that you have something to do with this. And do you know why? Because of this? Because your statement that you gave the other night to Detective Stewart is full of inconsistencies and untruths?
What?
I'm telling you, they have torn that statement apart. We have a page and a half of things that's not jiving, all right?
Like what? I have told you everything that happened on that day.
Well, I'm telling you that
I have
they have
receipts to show you. My daughter was with me.
we're
Are
not
you
saying
kidding
you.
me?
That's what I'm telling you.
Oh my
That
God.
there's trouble here, Teresa. There's trouble here. All right? You have got to tell us what happened that day, and if you don't tell us, then I'm telling you, I've been doing this for 24 years, and I'm telling you, I can see the direction that this is going. And if you're not truthful with me and tell me everything that's going on and what you know, you're going to be a soul out on a plank, all right, all by yourself. My investigators believe that you are involved in this, either in the cover-up. They
There
don't.
is no way.
I'm telling you.
I would never do anything to hurt my husband. I love him so much. That's why I was trying to get rid of this.
So once she was freaked out and off balance, Teresa said that she had nothing to do with David, that there was no affair, no murder plot, nothing. She said she already told them everything that she knew. But the detectives weren't dumb. They're trained to see people like this coming from a mile away. So at one point, they even straight up told her that she wasn't acting like a mourning wife. So what does she do when she hears that? She makes sure that she really turns up the drama, really cranks it up, and she's seen fake crying and lying her head down on the desk when the investigators are out of the room. I mean, somebody get her the Oscar. Go to Hollywood, right? So some time went by, and she eventually admitted that they did flirt a little bit in the past, but that was all. That was it. There was no sexual relationship, nothing like that. And then finally, after literal hours, she confessed that she did have an affair with Pastor David. And get this, it had been going on for 10 years, a decade. And of course, to no surprise to anybody, yes, he was the one who wrote her that cringy love letter. She even admitted that that baby that she had miscarried all those years ago was David's, not Randy's. The detectives later claimed that this was the only part of the entire investigation that they actually felt like she was even showing real emotions and real remorse and had real tears in her eyes when she was talking about the baby she lost with her lover. Even after finally admitting all of this, though, she still said that she had ended things with David 1 month before Randy's death. She was focused on her husband. She still loved him. She wanted to spend the rest of her life with him. She also said that there was absolutely no way that David could have killed Randy. But weirdly, she did admit that on the day of Randy's murder, she destroyed the burner phone that she had been using to text and call David. I guess she was worried that it would make her look bad if she kept it, which, yeah, it would. And she was right about it. It did look bad. But destroying the evidence also looked really bad too. I'm not going to lie, it looked like she was guilty. So at this point, I think Teresa only had one thing on her mind, that she was trying to save herself. And you can literally see her starting to decide that she needed to make herself look better in whatever way possible.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
They asked me last night if I wanted to have my lawyer here, and I've never been in this situation before, so I don't
Sure.
know what is expected of me as far as that.
Mhm.
I mean, do I need him here?
It's entirely up to you. Entirely up to you. You can make that call. I can't advise you either way. But it is your call. Whatever you want to do. If you need to.
I was sitting down there thinking about that, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm just asking God to help me make the right decision.
Sure, sure. And I do appreciate you talking about the things that we talked
And
about.
I don't know.
And being open and forthcoming about a lot of things.
I just don't know. I've already made myself look bad.
So she told the detectives, fine, I'm going to be totally honest with you. And usually when people have to preface things with something like, I'm going to be finally honest with you, I'm going to be totally honest with you, it's typically the most like eccentric, out of their kind of like the biggest lie they could possibly think of. But Teresa was no different. Even though she had just been defending David, she was over it now. She was now telling the detectives that throughout their affair, anytime she would try to end things, he would borderline harass and stalk her. She claimed that he would not leave her alone, even after she tried ending things. He would call her, he would text her, he would show up at their house, not even caring anymore if Randy learned the truth about their affair. And this was apparently the same for when she finally broke things off the month prior to Randy's death.
I told David, I said, both of us are married. We are committed to another person.
Mm-hmm.
We cannot do this. I said that to him several times, over and over again. And several times I tried to break it off with him. And he kept coming back full force on me. I mean, I would ignore his phone calls, I would ignore his texts, and finally I just got tired of it. And I said, David, what do you want? And he said, will you talk to me? And I said, no, I don't want to talk to you. Just leave me alone. And he would just come back at me full force. And he would make me feel bad.
How would he make you feel bad?
Well, he would just say, well, what about all the times that you told me about Randy doing this and Randy doing that? And I would be like, David, I was angry at Randy and Randy was mad at me. And I told you that because I was angry. And, I mean, he did the same thing to me. He would call me and tell me what his wife was doing to him. And just to see what I would say.
Now, this whole idea of Teresa constantly breaking off the relationship and David just not letting her was something that she didn't say just once. She continuously brought this up to the different detectives, really making sure to get her point across that she had apparently done everything in her power to end things. I don't know if she thought that it would make her look less guilty or more innocent. I don't really know what. But she said that she was terrified of him, knowing that he probably had killed her husband. And she said that when he asked her if he could give the eulogy at his funeral, the reason she said yes was out of fear.
And I asked you, why didn't you just pick up the phone and call the police? The man that killed my husband is standing right here in my living room. You didn't do it because you're scared of him. Teresa, your husband's dead. Your husband shot in the head in a business he built for him and you and your family. And you could care less about that.
No,
You could care less because you want to move on with your life.
that is not true.
Will you tell me what's true, Teresa?
I did not expect him
What did you
to kill
expect?
my
What
husband.
did you expect, Teresa? Look at this man. Listen to what he's done to you over the past 10 years. What do you expect him to do?
So it was crazy because even though she had just said that there was no possible way that David would have murdered Randy, now she was changing her tune. She told the detectives that on the day of Randy's murder, David had actually texted her saying, "Seriously urgent, do not go back to the office alone." She said that she took that to mean that David and Randy were in a fight over her and over the affair, but it wasn't until she found Randy's body that she realized what had really happened. Which I gotta say, even if that was true, it wasn't exactly a good story. She was basically saying that she knew from the beginning that David had killed Randy, and rather than tell the police what she knew, she had been covering for him, keeping the details of the affair to herself. And right after that, she even admitted to the detectives that David had pretty much offered to kill both Randy and his wife, Kim. Everything with her was just either a constant contradiction or like solely pointing the finger at David, but she was going all out.
When you saw him lying on the floor, what was your first thought?
I just kept yelling at him to wake up.
You knew something bad had happened, didn't you? You knew something bad had happened, and you knew who had done it. Yeah, you kind of had an idea. You know, like...
And why did I say something?
Yeah. Why didn't you?
I don't know.
How long had this been in the works?
I have no idea.
How long had you and David talked about this?
We haven't talked about any of this.
You didn't talk about this?
He always told me,
He who?
David.
Okay.
He always said that he could take care of our spouses if I wanted him to. And I kept saying, no, you're not doing anything.
So when he said take care of, what do you think that meant? Just say it.
Hurt him, I guess. I mean, what else would I think?
Hurt them, take their lives.
Yeah, that's what I kept telling him.
He talked about killing Randy, your husband, and his wife.
Yes.
And why would he do that? Why would he want to kill two people?
To have me, I guess.
To have you? He wanted you that badly?
I guess.
Okay. How about you? Did you want him?
No.
Did you want him that badly?
No.
You guys have been together for how long? You and David?
About 10 years.
Your relationship, your extramarital relationship with David lasted about 10 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
It got stronger as the years went on.
So it started off as what type
Just
of relationship?
like, close friends, good friends,
Then it grew to what?
Sexual.
Okay, now you say it got
lust.
stronger. Sexual lust, and it got stronger. Okay, what's stronger than that?
Love.
Love. So you guys fell in love.
Yeah.
Okay, for that 10-year period when you carried on the extramarital relationship with the minister of that church, David Love, you guys fell in love. And you started talking about getting rid of your spouses.
Well, I never talked about it.
But you listened to him.
I did.
And you entertained his ideas.
I kept telling him, I told him over and over and over and over and over again, David, you know this is not right. You cannot do this. This is not what God wants. You need to just leave it alone and leave it in God's hands. If God wants them out of our lives, He will take them out of our lives.
When the detectives asked how David would have had access to Randy's guns without Teresa being involved, she claimed that one time she had opened her and Randy's gun safe when David was with her, that he must have seen the combination and then remembered it so that he was able to break in later and get the gun for himself, which again, completely contradictory of herself because during that same interview when she was asked about the gun, she had this to say.
That age-old question here is, how would David Love end up with the gun? How would he get that away from Randy? And even more than that, how would Randy, if Randy was missing, and these, you know how much a gun, a Glock 23? We're talking $500, $600, $700 depending on where you buy it. It's a pretty expensive handgun. So if this gun just disappears, and Randy being the kind of guy he is, I mean, he's a law-abiding citizen, he's going to know if somebody has stolen my gun, probably he needs to report it, because if somebody uses the gun in a crime, he certainly doesn't want to be tied to. But there's no report to that gun being stolen. I would think that he would mention it to you because you guys are so close, all right? Mm-hmm. Hey babe, have you seen my Glock? My God, it's not my briefcase, it's not my desk. I've turned this house apart, but he never said that to you as far as what you're telling me. So I'm trying to figure out, how could this gun be gone even for a few days without him mentioning it or reporting it stolen or coming to you to talk to you about it? That's not making a lot of sense to me. Just the gun really bugs me. How David Love got that, of all people in the world, the church pastor, how in the world he could have gotten his hands on that gun?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know. The only thing that he's ever said to me was, Randy has showed me his guns in the gun case downstairs, in the safe. And unless he watched Randy open the case, you know,
Open the case?
or open the safe,
Safe?
you
Yeah.
know,
Uh-huh.
to show it to him.
So which one was it? Was David over at her house with Randy while he was showing off his guns to his buddies, or did David see you get into the safe and remember the combo? Or more importantly, did you just get in the safe yourself and then give him the gun yourself? But still, even after that whole thing, Teresa was playing victim, acting like this was all outside of her control, something that she couldn't have possibly stopped or ever even prevented.
Right now I feel like
Like what?
a piece of dirt on the floor.
Is that what God sees you as, a piece of dirt on the floor?
No, he
How does
sees me
God
as
see you?
his child.
He sees you as what?
His child.
He sees you as his child. It's the child he loved from the day she was born. Yes, the child that he loved before she was conceived. That's how God sees you. And you know that. And you know that for a fact. And even knowing that, Teresa, you sit here, you even know that. And you're still holding back.
I am not holding anything back. I promise you.
Teresa, have you confessed all this to God?
I have. What do you think I've been doing down there?
I don't know. I don't know.
I have been praying the whole time I've been in there.
Okay, and you know he knows your heart.
Yes,
And he
I
knows
know.
what happened. He knows the situation.
I know he knows. He knows everything.
And he knows how you planned this with David.
I did not plan anything with David Love. Never. I did not plan it. I did not want this to happen. This was not supposed to happen. God was supposed to be in control of this, not him.
God was not going to let Randy die, was he?
No, and I didn't want him to die.
So what did you want to happen?
I wanted to start over. That's what we were trying to do, start over our lives. But he would not leave me alone. He would not leave me alone.
So after this man killed your husband, you continue to talk to him.
He was at my house. What was I supposed to say?
You killed my husband, I'm calling the police.
I should.
Why didn't you?
I was scared.
Teresa, why didn't you?
I was scared. I didn't know what he would do.
Either way, now Teresa agreed to help get a confession from David. So on April 21st at 12:43 a.m., she called David. She was still right there in the interrogation room, and the police were listening in on everything.
All right, here's your phone. Don't dial yet.
Jeez. I'm scared, guys.
You're okay. I promise. All right, you ready?
The idea is to
Don't dial yet.
get him to talk as much as you can before you say you need to meet him. Don't just say you want to meet him, because he'll run out the door. Try to get him talking first and lead into maybe a meeting someplace outside the residence.
But talk to him as much as you can about it. Obviously, we're recording this. We want to get as much recorded as we can about him admitting he killed your husband. Okay? Hold on. This is Detective Sal and Rosehorn, Independence Police. It's April 21st, 2010, 12:43 a.m. This will be a controlled phone call between Teresa Stone to David Love's home phone number, 816-796-8102.
She said very specific things like, "You have to do something. I can't live like this anymore. This is just killing me." And maybe she came off a bit too strong, I don't know, but it almost sounded like David knew that he was being set up. He even seemed to ask her where she was and who she was with. Then he said that he would come over to her house and talk with her there. But when she told him that he couldn't, he saw that as a major red flag, a warning of sorts. I guess the pastor was too smart to fall for any of that. I don't know.
We need to talk. Yes, now. You can't talk now on the phone? I can't do this anymore. I cannot live like this. I just can't do this. You got to do something. I said you have to do something. I can't live like this anymore. This is just killing me. Yes, I'm with Miranda and my parents. No. No. It needs to be you and I. No, I need to talk to you. I need to know. I need to know. I need to know everything. I need to know why you did this. I need to know why you did this to me. Can you go someplace else, please? I need to talk to you alone. No. No. No, you can't. No. If you don't talk to me, I'm gonna go to the police. I can't do this anymore. You can't come over. No, you just can't. No. I want to know why. I want to know why. You know what?
Now, the most interesting thing about this whole phone setup, to me at least, was that Teresa was acting the same way on the phone with David as she had been in all of those interviews. I mean, the high-pitched, sad voice, the fake tears. I mean, really, she had essentially just proved to the detectives how good of a show, how good of an act she could put on. So when ultimately that plan didn't work out, the police asked David to come in for questioning. He did, but it doesn't mean that he was cooperative. Right away, literally as soon as his butt hit the chair, he asked for a lawyer, saying, "I'm a pastor, I don't know the law, I want my lawyer." And then he just sat there, not saying anything. Which, in fairness, is what you probably should do if you've asked for a lawyer. I mean, guilty or not, anything you say in that situation can and will be used against you, just like they tell you. And since the detectives couldn't question him anymore, they just told him to wait for his lawyer in a jail cell. He could sit there for 24 hours until they brought the charges against him. So he waited in jail, acting very calm, calling some of his friends and family members, asking them to bring him a Bible. And then the following day, he was released, which I guess the police were bluffing when they said that they would press charges the next day. I don't know, because as it turns out, they still didn't have enough on him to actually press charges. So David ended up walking out of the police station a free man. He quit his job as a pastor not long afterward, but he was very calm when he gave his notice. He didn't seem panicked. He didn't seem freaked out. It was just very even-keeled. Even when the investigators started showing up to he and Kim's home with a search warrant, he still kept cool. He was playing the piano, he was singing gospel songs for them, which kind of sounds like it would be majorly distracting for the officers and not the conditions that I would want to work underneath personally, but he just seemed like he had nothing to hide and was very calm. But then, as soon as the detective left is when all things went sideways. Because David skipped town. He knew that he was about to get caught, and he wasn't going to stick around and wait to be arrested. And he managed to stay free on the run for months. It wasn't until November 2010 that they finally caught up with him in South Carolina. David was arrested and charged with first-degree murder and armed criminal action. By now, the police had emails, they had texts, they had all of the things to prove that he and Teresa had not only been having an affair, but they had been planning this murder together. In fact, not long after David went on the run, apparently reality hit Teresa. So she had gone to the police and she had given a very honest, straightforward confession. She said that she gave David the code to get into her and Randy's garage and into their safe so that he could grab and pull the gun himself. She also admitted that she knew all about the murder plot, that she had known the exact day that it was going to happen. Frankly, she gave David the idea to kill Randy too, telling him things like, "I want him dead, I just want him out of my life, we can be together." I mean, so much for the happy couple of about 20 years, right? And you might be wondering, why now? After all of the lies, why would Teresa be honest now of all times? Well, a few months after Randy's murder, Teresa finally got what she had been wishing for. All the information that she needed about Randy's life insurance policy. The only problem was, she wasn't listed on any of it anymore. It turns out that at some point, Randy had updated it so that everything would go to their children, Michael and Miranda. A lot of people wondered if maybe she cooperated and turned herself in because now she had nothing to lose at this point. I mean, she wasn't trying to stay out of jail to get her payout and live the rest of her life like she had once dreamed. That dream has evaporated. And speaking of her kids, maybe they encouraged her to cooperate and tell whatever it is she knew to whoever. I mean, who knows? It's hard to say why somebody does the things that they do. But in May of 2011, she was charged with conspiracy to commit murder. Both she and David took plea deals, which I have to say is about the smartest thing that either one of them did this entire time. David pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and is currently serving a life sentence with the possibility of parole after the year 2037. And Kim has divorced David, which, good for her, good riddance, scumbag. Teresa also pleaded guilty to conspiracy to commit murder. She begged the judge for mercy at her sentencing, and she was full of tears, maybe real, maybe fake, who the heck really even knows, but she begged.
I'm so sorry that I have allowed myself to get caught up in these bad choices that have led to the death of my husband.
Both of her children also begged for leniency, and I can't help but feel terrible for them.
I know what my mother has done, and that she has made very bad choices, and that's why we're here.
Losing my dad was extremely hard, but losing my mom would be harder.
Ultimately, Teresa only received 8 years, and that was in 2012. So today, Teresa is a free woman. Maybe she's even watching this now. Hi, Teresa, if you're watching. I'd love to chat with you and get your take on all of this. I mean, I'm sure Teresa and her kids were ecstatic at the short prison sentence, but Randy's own mother was a bit heartbroken, understandably. This seemed very short.
I think Teresa needs help. That's what hurts bad, is I love Teresa. But I just wanted her to at least get enough time to sit there and think, was it worth it? You know, why not just get a divorce? At least I'd have my son. and the kids would have their father.
I think she pretty much summed up what we're all probably thinking. Teresa had these hopes and these dreams that were completely attainable, but instead she chose to destroy her own family. And for what? This guy writing you these love letters and what you think is going to be 800 grand as a payout? I've said it before, I've said it 10 times, I'll say it again. Just get a divorce. Just get a divorce, because now your kids have lost both of their parents. Well, I guess not technically both, because you're back in their life. Your prison term is over, which I can't seem to reconcile how that's possible. But now you've destroyed another family's life, all for what? Just divorce. Just leave him. Just do your own thing and be with whatever pastor you want to be with, right? It's bizarre. But I appreciate you hearing Randy's story, because that is who this story is most important about. It's Randy, it's Kim, it's getting justice that he deserves, the family justice. And in my opinion, he really didn't hit the mark. I think her sentence should have been longer, but I'm interested to know what you guys think. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of 10 to Life. I will be back with you again with another one very soon. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, make sure you do. Hit that subscribe button and you won't miss any of these deep dives in the future. All right, guys, thank you so much. And until the next one, stay safe. Bye.